Hello there everyone, I'm Christina of CSL Designs and today I'm going to show you how to make this elegant flat Kumihimo bracelet, and this is what mine looks like. So this is a flat braid structure that we're making, and then what we've just done is we're adding beads along the edges on both sides there, and then I have a rhinestone chain added into the very middle of it. So that's the front of it here, and then the back just looks like that. So it's still nice and comfortable to wear because there's nothing really on the back except for the beads on the side. So it's nice and flat there. So that's what it looks like. So that chain added into the braid, it's incorporated into it, so it's not going to come out in any way. That really adds an extra different touch to this braid. And obviously I've chosen some beads as well that are quite sparkly, so it makes it very elegant looking. But I've then finished it off with ribbon ends where I've attached my clasp, so you can do that. And otherwise, if you want to learn how to make this bracelet, then keep watching. So these are the materials that we're going to be using. So what I have here is a square Kumihimo disc because we're making a flat braid structure. And then the cord that I'm using is this 1mm satin cord, and I'm using this dark blue colour just to give a nice contrast between the sparkliness of my beads and my chain there. And that chain is this rhinestone chain here. Now the one that I'm using specifically is 4x4mm in the little links there, but it doesn't have to be that specifically. You can play around with the size of that chain. And the beads that I'm using are these 3x4mm rondelles. Now they're metallic blue and they're faceted as well, so they add that lovely sparkle, but I've kept the colour in the same tone as the cord. And then I'm going to finish off the ends of my braid using these ribbon ends here, and obviously in those we then have those loops that we can then attach our clasp to. So I'm using a Loxo claw clasp and extended chain, and I'm attaching them with the jump rings there. So let's get all the materials ready and let's get started. And the lengths of cord that we're then going to need is 12 lengths here, or about 50 centimeters each. And then I've just made sure to put the ends together so they're even, and then tied a knot there to hold them together, and we then need to attach these to our disc. Now one thing I also like to do to prepare my cord here is I take the ends, so the open ends that we're going to be making the braid with, and then I just singe the end. Now you can do this if you're using a synthetic cord like I am. This is a satin cord. So I just take my lighter, obviously be careful because it's hot, it's a naked flame and it does get warm. I just singe the end, so basically melt it just a little bit, and then roll like this, and then you create this little kind of needle that really makes it much easier to add your beads on. And then as for the rhinestone chain, there isn't really a specific length that you need to use because obviously it all depends on your size of the braid that you need as well. And what we just recommend is, what you need to make sure of is that you always have enough to go around your wrist, but then also some extra. So I will make sure I have a little amount extra of the chain than what I would need around the wrist, because what happens is when we add it into the braid, it pushes the links closer together with the technique in the braid. So just make sure that you have more than what fits around your wrist. Just rather have too much than too little. So I've then taken my lengths of cord and attached them onto my disc here, and basically what I've done is I've taken that knot on the end of the cord and just put it down through the hole in the center, so the little ends are coming out there, and that's also where the braid is going to be growing out from. And then on the front here, I've just put 6 lengths of cord in the 6 middle slots on the top side of the disc, and then also 6 lengths, the remaining 6, in the 6 middle slots on the bottom of the disc. So the disc looks like this. We'll have 6 opposite each other basically on the top and the bottom. And then we need to start braiding. Now what I'm going to do is make a little section of the braid with just using the cord here before we start adding anything else in, just so we have that end that we can finish off with. So what we need to do is focus on the 2 middle ones first of all on the top. So I take the right one out of the middle ones there on the top and bring it to the left side, and then place it into slot B on the left, so just straight out to the side there. And then I take the left one out of the 2 middle ones on the top and bring it to the right and just place it into the slot. Then you can see we have that gap on top, so we need to start filling them, and we need to move all the top and the bottom ones across to the opposite side basically. But imagine that you have like a line down through the center, so you have 2 sides. There's the left side and the right side. So I'm just going to start on my left one. It doesn't really matter which one you start on, but then again focusing on the middle ones, the left one out of those 2 middle ones, I'm going to release and bring up and put it into that empty slot on the top, straight across from it, so the left one of the 2 empty ones. Then move 1 slot further out to the side, release that, bring it down to the empty slot on the bottom now, and then move 1 slot out to the side again, release that, bring it to the top into the empty slot there that we just freed up. Then take the last one on the top here, bring it down into the empty slot on the bottom, and then the last bottom one, release it and bring it up to the top. You You can see that's kind of one side here. We need to do the exact same thing but on the other side. So start from the bottom because we have that empty slot on the top. So we need to take the very opposite one, so the right one out of the two middle ones. Bring that to the top empty slot there in the middle. Move one slot out to the side. Bring that down to the empty slot that we just freed up. And we're constantly moving just one slot out towards the side. Working our way further and further out until we've then used up and moved all of the cords there on the top and the bottom. So that's basically the movements on the top and the bottom in this round. Then we need to bring the side ones back into the braid. So I'm going to release just one at a time. It doesn't matter what side you start with. And then instead of just bringing it down, what I like to do to get my braids as tight as possible and even is I grab hold of it kind of in my hand, and then in where it's coming out from the side of the braid there, I basically push against the other cords. So it tightens all of the cords up right there in the middle. And then I bring it down and put it into the slot. And the same on the other side, I just push against the middle there and pull a little bit at it. And then I bring it down to the empty slot on the bottom. And then once I've done that, you can see all the cords are now back in the original setup. And this is one full round. So now I have my first little section of the braid there. You can see it starts to come out of the back. Then I've gotten to the point where I want to start adding in both beads and also then my chain. Now I'm going to then start a new round, and in this one here I'm then going to add in my beads. So we'll just start out on the exact same way. Out of the two middle ones on the top, I take the right one towards the left, and then the left one towards the right, and then we move all the cords there on the top and the bottom across the opposite side, just on one side at a time, working our way out towards the side, but only until we get to the point where I have the last one left on the bottom there. And this one is where I want to add in my first bead. So I just grab my bead and then I add that onto my cord. Just get it on there. And then we want to make sure that this goes all the way down. So obviously we'll release the cord and then push it all the way down the cord right until it ends up on by the braid. Now what we need to do is make sure that this gets pushed underneath. So we have the cord going out to the side. We need to make sure the bead here goes underneath that. So just make sure you push it right in there. So when you bring up this cord to go into the top slot there, the bead stays underneath that cord going out to the side. And then we move to the other side and do the same thing. So move the cords on the top and the bottom to the opposite sides, one at a time, working your way out to the side. Again until you get to the last one on the bottom there. You take the end of it and then take your bead, add the bead onto the cord, and then bring it all the way down the cord, release it there, again, then push that bead right into the middle, the hole in the middle there, making sure it goes underneath the cord that's going out to the side. And then you can bring the cord up, so you finish up that side as well. And then we just have the side ones left. Now it's the same principle. I release one at a time, make sure to push in on the braid there from the side and pull a bit on the cord that I'm moving, just to make sure this gets just as tight as the rest of the rounds. And there we go, and we've now got those beads added in. So that was then one round with the beads here. Then the next round I'm going to do, I want to add in my chain. So obviously I'm adding in just the first time here, it's going to be added in. The rest of the time it's going to be there because it's connected with the rest. But what I want to do is just get to one end first of all. And we need to just get to the very first link. And then what I'm actually going to do is take that link and push it down between those two cords in the middle. So the ones that are coming towards the bottom. So it basically gets trapped a little bit there. And the cords are just sitting on either side of the connection point between the links. And then the rest of the chain I'm just laying towards the top, right in the middle in between those two cords on the top of the disc there. And I'm making sure that the front of the chain, so obviously the sparkly bit is facing towards me, and the back of the chain is going to basically be facing down towards the disc or away from me, depending how the chain is lying. So now we need to actually incorporate it into the braid. So it's the exact same technique, we just got to take the chain into account now. So again, out of the top two middle ones, I take the right one first of all, release that, and then I bring it down here. Now the most important one is obviously the first time you add in the chain here, because it's not connected yet, so it's still kind of loose. But then what we want to make sure to do is that this cord I just released, I brought it down so basically it's coming out in between the two first little rhinestone links there. Then I bring it out to the side. Now this cord is going in front of that chain now. And then I release the other one, making sure that that chain is still in between them, or in the middle rather. Release the other one from the left side now. Again, bring it around the side of the chain, down to the front, and then bring it around the front of the chain. So these two cords that we've just released and crossed to the sides are crossing each other in front of the chain, in between those two first links there. And then now we basically just need to repeat what we've been doing. So what you can do is just move the chain a little bit out of the way. I'm working on the left side first, so I'm just moving the chain a little bit to the right, just to clear up some space. So again, just move the top and the bottom ones in the exact same way, one at a time, until I reach the last one. And then the other side, so again I just move my chain a little bit to the opposite side, but keep it roughly in the middle, like that, making sure that these cords as well go along the side of the chain, so it doesn't get kind of trapped anywhere where it doesn't need to be. So just like this, the last one, and then just bring it back to the middle. We have the cords on the side left, and exact same principle, make sure to tighten up the braid by just pushing against the braid on the side, and then bringing the cord down. So just like that. So we've now got the chain incorporated into the braid in the first round here. So in this round that we just did, I didn't add any beads on the sides. I did that the previous one, and what I'm going to do now is when the next one is adding beads. So I'm basically going to add in the beads on every other round. But before we can do that, start the next round, I need to just move my chain, because right now it's going towards the top there. I need to bring it down. So just kind of move it down here. It's going to kind of be sticking out a little bit like that from the disc. That's fine, just kind of get it towards the bottom. So basically now the back of it is facing upwards, because in this round then, because obviously we can't keep going on one side of the chain because that way it'll just fall out on the other side. We need to capture it in place from both sides, so both from the front and the back. So we just did a round where we captured the front of the chain. Now we need to capture the back. So we do the exact same technique. So start around, and then I release the right one out of the top two in the middle, bring it just out to the side, and because I've moved that chain now, it's naturally coming around the back of it, that link, and then the other one, cross that over as well, and again that's also naturally now coming around the back of the chain. And then otherwise move the bottom and the top ones. You can just slightly move the chain out of the way if you need to, like that. And then because this is where I'm adding in beads, we just take that last one before we move it, and then just add a bead onto it, and then bring it all the way down. So basically the only difference is here the chain is now attached, and it's going to be attached the whole time as we're making the rest of the braid. So basically we just got to keep moving it so it's in the right position. Push this down, again make sure it goes underneath that cord going out to the side before you then bring that cord up, and on the other side you can just move the chain again, move all the cords here to the opposite side, and then here also add a bead to the very last one before moving it, like that. And then again make sure to bring it all the way down. So basically we achieve the beads sitting on the edge or edges of the braid by adding them into these cords. So push it underneath there and then bring the cord up. You can just bring the chain back in the middle, and then we just want to move the side ones and tighten up the braid again. just so the whole braid gets as even as possible. So there we go, that's one more round. And then the next round is going to be basically the same as the first one where we added in the chain. But obviously the chain is already added in, it's already there. But what I'm going to do is every other round we add in the beads, we just did that. And then every other round you could say we add in the chain. Obviously, like I said, it's already added in. But it's basically the point where the chain is going up towards the top and laying right there in the middle. Because where the cords then are going to be crossing around the front of the chain. So we repeat that now. Make sure that that chain is in the middle. Release the right cord from the top two middle ones first of all. Bring that out to the side, making sure that that cord goes around the front of the chain, but in between the two links, the next two. And it should naturally kind of be the next two links every single time. Because then obviously when we do the ones where it goes around the back, that goes around the back of that next link that's right above where we just doing it now. And then we just move the top and the bottom ones. And that then catches the next link in place. Like that. And then the other side as well. Move one cord at a time, if I can find it, until we reach the very last one. Again, this round we're not adding beads because the chain is facing upwards there. Then bring them down while tightening the braid up, just like that. And then we've added in the next link in the chain. And then the next round is going to be adding in the beads because that's the second one after we did it last time. So that means this time the cords crossed in front of the chain, so now they need to cross behind, which means I need to bring the chain down before I start the next round. And then as we're crossing the cords over and out to the side, they're going to be crossing behind the chain, just like that. And then otherwise it's the same for the rest of this round, and obviously on those last ones is where you add in the beads again. So you just keep doing this, alternating between them, whether it's front or the back of the chain, and obviously alternating every other one you're going to add in the beads until you have the length that you need. So now that I kept braiding here, I've reached the length that I want my braid to be, so obviously the main part of it, and it looks a little something like that. So you can see you get the effect of the rhinestone chain in the middle and then those beads on the edges that really kind of help frame it in. And obviously because of the materials that I've chosen, it adds a lot of sparkle as well. Then what we need to do is make this end of the braid basically the same as we started out. So a little section with just the braid without adding anything in. So that also means now I need to get rid of this chain. So we're basically just going to cut off the excess. So first of all, obviously you just want to make absolutely sure that you have the length that you need, because once you cut the chain off, then obviously it's no longer incorporated into the braid. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring it down here just so I have a bit more space. Then I'm going to take my wire cutters and we just need to cut off the excess. So I'm going to cut in between these two links here, basically just after the very last link that's kind of popping out at the end of the braid, just sticking out a little bit. I'm just going to cut off the excess right after that one, as close to it as possible, like that. And then just remove the rest of the chain, and then you just have that last link sitting there, and it's basically going to end up being exactly the same as in the very beginning. And then we just continue braiding, obviously now without adding anything in, because we're done with that main section. The exact same technique. I'm just going to make sure now that all the rounds that I'm doing, mainly these next ones that matter, go behind that link, not in front of it, because we still want that to show up on the front. And otherwise you just do about the same amount of rounds to get the same length as the other end. So again, we can finish off this end as well in the same way. So now I've finished my braid here. I've taken it off my disc. What you just want to make sure to do is once you've made that little end, you just hold on to the braid and then release the cords and then tie a knot here, just obviously to make sure that it's not going to come undone. And then this is what it looks like. You can see we have the rhinestone chain right there in the middle, adding some nice bling, and also those beads on the side. Now because I've added these ones that are faceted, obviously that also adds bling, but you can really add whatever you want to. And this is what it looks like. Now what you will find is on the ends here, the rhinestone chain, that last link is technically a bit loose, kind of sticking out from the braid, but it does lay flat against it. because obviously it just follows the rest. So if you really want to, if that bothers you, you can also add just a little bit of glue just in behind that link, and then just make sure to glue it to the braid. But personally, I don't really mind because it just ends up laying flat following the rest of them, and this chain is in the braid securely, so this is definitely not going to come out because obviously it's captured both from the back and the front. But then all it's left to do now is finish off the ends. So I'm going to use the ribbon ends to do that. I've already got a tutorial where I show how to use them, so you can feel free to check that out. I'm going to put a link to it in the description box below. But otherwise, finish off the ends, attach your findings, and then you have your finished bracelet. So now I've attached my clasp here as well on the ends after I've attached those ribbon ends and maxed in the chain, and then this is my finished bracelet. So that's what it looks like, and obviously we can just use the clasp here and it's ready to wear. So there we go. So you have this really nice feature of the flat braid, but then that chain in the middle and the beads on the side. It just kind of really adds something to that basic braid. So it's a pretty simple technique in the braid that we're making here, but obviously the most tricky part is just really getting that chain captured in nicely and securely. So make sure you do that both from the front and the back, and then it just really kind of embeds itself into that braid. So I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial here for this bracelet. Check out my channel for other tutorials and Kumihimo tutorials as well. I have loads of them. Thank you so much for watching this one, and I'll see you in the next one.